Yeah, so on the first point with universal basic income, I think it's really important to, first of all, everybody has a right to a universal basic standard of living. I think that's something that we should all commit to. But the question then becomes, is the best way to do that by handing everybody a check and assuming they should consume that through the cash nexus and all the problems with that, or providing those services directly or other ways? That's the first thing. The second thing is a basic income doesn't have an internal theory of production. It's money goes into a thing over there called the market, and then the real goods and services come out the other side you get to consume. There isn't a thing called the market that's doing production. That is some fiction that we've isolated out of the broader economic system and the social system. So we need to actually own the fact that if we want our universal basic income, we want capitalism to solve the problems of production, and with all the problems that we recognize of the current system will just be exacerbated. I don't think that liberation from the economy comes by topping up people's Amazon accounts, and that's what I think a universal basic income has the risk of doing when it's not accompanied with a theory of underlying production. The more broader question or point I think that, building on what Derek and Phil were just saying, is a job guarantee is a deeper commitment than just a consumption commitment. It's a commitment to your role as a valued member of the human race and your community, and a commitment by the public to give you the means to self-actualize. I could have all the basic income in the world, and that doesn't make me a lawyer, and it doesn't make me an architect unless there's means for me to get access to those experiences and those licenses and those communities of work. I could be the most amazing artist in the world, and if nobody cares about me because I don't have access to distribution systems, it doesn't matter whether finally being free of my 9-to-5 grind is going to cause me to suddenly become the artist I want to be. And if you tell a child, what do you want to do when you're 5? Most of them don't say, receive a check. They say, I want to be an astronaut, or I want to be a firefighter, or I want to be an artist, or I want to be a teacher. That is the commitment that a job guarantee is saying is, okay, we'll work with you on that stuff. Maybe you'll find it's unrealistic and you'll change career paths or whatever, but there is an end goal called you are part of something. And there's some amazing work, I'm forgetting the name of the author right now, but it just recently came out a whole history book about the history of disability as a category, and how for a lot of up till the mid-19th century, there wasn't a hard line between the disability community and everybody else. The disabled people were expected to work and contribute to the community as much as they were able to alongside everybody else, and the creation of that category became a way to stigmatize and reduce the commitment to that community to be part of that broader social productive process. And I think that's the deep injustice, or the sort of soft bigotry of low expectations that comparing a basic income to a job guarantee leads us to, in terms of the vision that we're promising to children. Really quickly, the low employment thing, I think there is an imaginative break we need to get to, that this is the start of something bigger. So a job guarantee is a way to start a conversation of, we can create public jobs, right? If we think that things need to be done in our community, we should have a way to do that, even if we're not already rich or already have access to bank financing or something. And this is the first time, I think, that we are imaginatively allowing ourselves again to talk about direct public sector job creation. And we're starting at the bottom because that's the most morally defensible place. But there's no reason why that doesn't open up a whole new door to, we can start talking about what jobs we want in our community that aren't just police and judges and firefighters and the military, which is the sort of negotiated social kind of compromise we're at now. Lastly, with the worker bargaining power, I think that, I totally agree with productivity, and if we have a job guarantee, we have a very different conception of what unionization potential looks like. Everybody's part of the job guarantee union. It's an alternative to a strike fund, because it's actually a strike production system. You not only have a right to go on strike from your current employer, you have a right to go to a farm and actually make food so that your family isn't relying on the food that your employer was going to sell you, or whatever else it is. So every time there's a crisis or there's a massive strike or capital labor relations get problematic, that's a place for the job guarantee to ratchet up. And that could be a permanent thing or a temporary thing, depending on what your politics are.
All right, so I agree with pretty much everything that was said so far. Even the successful income guarantee experiments show that people still need work. And so the only way that we could provide it is by guaranteeing it. There are, in fact, really interesting experiments. I've looked at one in Argentina where people were asked to transition from a jobs guarantee program to an income support program, and people didn't really want to transition because of all these other benefits that work provides to them, even though the basic income program provided more income than the job guarantee program. But I do maybe that's the only thing that I disagree with, maybe with Derek here. Probably the only thing is that I do have a philosophical opposition to the universal basic income provided to all, irrespective of whatever labor market participation, to provide the basic decent life. Because I think it's a false promise, and it is predicated on this notion that, well, it actually doesn't recognize that we work to provision for ourselves. That, you know, like, we need to really broaden the vision and the idea of work. You know, a basic income kind of responds to the punitive forms of work that we see in modern society. But throughout time, we have had to provision for ourselves, and we have to provision for ourselves collectively. So if my story is correct, if the tax system is this coercive mechanism that is transferring real resources from the private to the public sector to then potentially redistribute them more equitably, that's one mechanism by which we've been doing this, and we've been doing it in a very flawed way. We create unemployment, we have not been able to solve it, we have not provisioned the public sector. If you provide basic income, you under-provision the public sector, because people don't have to work for the currency. They get, in a sense, free money, right? Like, why would you work for it? So it is like we're trying to democratize this inherently, you know, coercive relationship at the heart of the monetary system. And so that's really my philosophy, that, you know, we need to rethink what it means to work and to establish a coordinating mechanism of public goods provisioning. Provisioning for families and individuals through jobs and dignified jobs, but also to the public sector to provide public services. So I'll leave it there. On the pushback, strategies for pushback, it really is a hurdle. But I mean, there are several things to say. First, I've started talking a lot about the real costs that Phil was mentioning, the social costs. They are countless. Just look at the public, health literature, the cognitive sciences. These are really enormous costs to society. So even a little bit of unemployment is paid in these real terms. And if only people were to understand the neglect that children experience because parents have no access to decent employment, the mental, physical problems that they and their spouses experience, the loss of human capital, you name it. I mean, it's a long list. So if we just pivot into tell that story, then people understand that we're already bearing these real costs, and there's just a better way. And then the other thing is a strategy point. I say do it now, because it's easy. When unemployment is low, because the next recession is coming. We know exactly how unemployment behaves and how it spreads like a contagion effect through communities. So you need to have a standby policy of prevention to stop this avalanche effect. And, the moral claim is extremely important. Why? The Fed is so clear about it. We are seeing wage pressures, which means that you're earning too much income. We have to step on the brakes. In which moral framework is this an acceptable policy response to prices? The job guarantee has price stabilizing features. And then the final thing is that this is, as a preventative measure, this is the policy that's going to deal with the frontline fallout from climate threats and climate change, because we know exactly who's going to suffer. You have a hurricane in Puerto Rico, and it wipes out all businesses, all means of subsistence, and people die. And so you need to have some sort of direct response to provide them not just with the job, with the means of subsistence and the public good services that they will so need. And finally, on the productivity question, we have good research. People that are poorly paid and that are afraid of losing jobs are bad workers. They are not happy. But if they have some sort of security, they do better. And so the response to this question is unemployment has zero productivity, even negative productivity. Yes.
Okay, we only have a few minutes left. I saw, I think, a couple hands over here, and then I'm going to hop over to the other side of the room just to get as many on the record as we can. I don't